Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. As promised in a previous video, today is the day. We are embarking on a brand new career today. We're going to be exploring an old plugin that has been revisited and revamped, and in my personal opinion, has had some serious upgrades and improvements done to it. Stuff that we've needed for a very long time. So all of that now being said, if you've ever wanted to have a GUI shop on your server and just didn't because it looked too confusing or just looked too complicated or it just isn't something that you wanted to take on, now's the time. This plugin has automated so many processes that would have shied away so many other server owners. Now, if you want to have a GUI shop on your server, there is absolutely no reason not to. So stay tuned, check it out. Let me know what you guys think of the brand new GUI shop. Hey everybody, welcome back to Rust Admin Academy, where I teach you guys the very best tips and tricks to owning and operating a successful Rust server. On this channel, I do a lot of plugin reviews and tutorials to hopefully teach you some of the tricks, some of the pitfalls, and maybe help you solve some of the problems that you might come across as you're setting up your server. If you're brand new to the channel, consider subscribing. And of course, make sure you turn on that notification bell so that I can annoy you every time I put out a new video. You get that silly little notification saying, hey, watch me, watch me. And of course, by the end of this video, if you happen to like it, you know what to do. Smash that like button for me. All right, let's get into the brand new GUI shop. So in the interest of full disclosure, here's how this situation came to pass. So GUI shop used to be maintained by somebody else previously. They abandoned the project. They basically left it on Umod saying, here you go, it works. However, if one day it stops working, I'm not going to make any more changes to this plugin. You guys are on your own. Well, somebody came along and decided that they wanted to pick up where that previous developer left off. That person, his name is Khan. He is in my YouTube Discord. So if you guys have any questions, you can direct it towards him. Be careful with that. Don't bombard him with a whole bunch of issues. I would prefer that you put your questions through me, and then if I need to involve Khan, I definitely can. Also, I don't want to have a bunch of unsolicited people contacting Khan without his explicit permission to do so, in the interest of fairness. So that all being said, there is actually a version of GUI shop that is available from the Umod website. However, this current version is not the final version. So I went over this before on a previous video. I briefly mentioned that he did some fixes on the version that is publicly available on the Umod website. However, this isn't his finalized version. The one that I have, the one that I'm going to be working with today and showing you guys how to work with today, is actually closer to the finalized version. I mean, let's face it, when is a plugin ever actually done complete? Almost never. But this isn't the type of situation where we're waiting for a plugin to be released on the marketplace. This is going to be free, and it's going to be available from this link on the Umod website. So I will be posting this in the video description down below. And once the finalized version of the plugin becomes available, it just needs to go through an approval process. It's no big deal. It doesn't take very long. It will be available here, and you guys can all download it. So there are some dependencies, or at least one dependency for sure, that you have to deal with before you install GUI shop into your server. And that dependency is some sort of an economic system. So if we have a look at the requirements for GUI shop, the first thing that you see there is that economics is required. So make sure that you download economics, and I would suggest that you actually install that plugin first, and then you can go ahead and install GUI shop. If you're unfamiliar with how to install plugins, make sure you check the video in the top right hand corner right now. Just a really quick short video shows you how to install plugins and what to expect while you're doing that. Okay, so now that we have economics installed and we have our GUI shop installed, let's dive into the server and see what kind of stuff is actually changed. As is with most plugins, we want to make sure that we deal with the permissions before we try to do anything else with the plugin. And as many of you know, I use two different permissions managers. One of them is admin menu, that's available from the Chaos Code website. The other one is permissions manager, which I get from Stina Maru. So if you're interested in learning about either one of those two plugins, make sure you check out the video in the top right hand corner. It goes over both of those plugins in full detail. So this is what admin menu would look like, but today I think we're going to use permissions manager. So let's do /perms group default, and we're just going to deal with default as the entire group. So let me just explain that really quick. By applying the permissions to the group called default, it's basically making so that anybody that comes into the server is going to have access to the shop. But let's say, for example, that you didn't want everyone to have access. Maybe you only wanted your VIPs or a specific special group of players to have access to the shop. Be careful with that. You don't want to be pay to win. You don't want to get to be known as that guy. You can obviously apply these permissions to different groups. It doesn't necessarily have to be the default group. So let's go into GUI shop And as you can see there, because I've been testing this plugin already, both of my permissions are already granted. When you first install this plugin, it's going to look like this, and both of those permissions are going to be revoked. So we want to just switch them over to granted, and that's it. That's all we need to do for permissions. Now we can do /shop in chat, and it's going to bring up your GUI shop. And by default, it's going to bring us up to the command section. And because we haven't set up any commands yet, obviously this list is going to look empty. So let's go over to attire, and now we can see the GUI shop has automatically generated all of this information. So literally all I've done so far is installed the plugin, let it auto generate the config file. Now I've come in game, I've granted the permissions, and now I've opened up my shop. So to any of you that have used GUI shop before, you're going to notice a drastic change at this point. So on the previous versions of GUI shop, you had to individually import every single one of the items that you wanted to be able to sell. And then of course you had to go in and adjust the pricing for each individual thing. So this plugin now will automatically generate that config file that automatically has every single item in the game already in your configuration file. Actually, let me just show you what that looks like right now, because it is a rather large document. So this is what your default config file is going to look like. So it's, like I said before, this is auto populating. So you don't have to do any of this work, which is super easy. So let's just scroll down. Let's just scroll through our list here real quick. And as you can see, literally every single item in the game is already put into the buy column as well as the sell column. Once we get down past all of the different categories, you're going to start seeing all of the different. So this is the last category right here. Medical. Cool. Okay. So here's where the items actually start. So imagine this right here is everything that you have to write out for every single item in the game. So for each item that you want to sell from your GUI shop, you have to do this much information. So this is where we all throw our accolades towards Con. We say thank you very much. We clap our hands, we tip our hat, we do all of these various different things because we appreciate everything that Con has done to this plugin. If we scroll right down to the very bottom of the configuration file, we can see that there's 8,479 lines inside this configuration file, all automatically generated for us. We didn't have to lift a finger. We didn't have to do a thing. Glorious. In my opinion, this is probably the best feature of this new version. So while we're here, just a couple of things before we carry on in-game stuff. The plugin will automatically add any new item that is added to the game. So as an example, so today being October 1st, 2020, we added the elevator into the game. I didn't have to do anything. The plugin automatically went and grabbed that elevator, put all of the information into the configuration file, and just like that, I'm able to buy an elevator from my GUI shop. It's just that simple. It's all automated. I literally didn't have to do anything to put the elevator into the GUI shop. And because I brought up the elevator, we'll just go over elevator as the section that I want to cover on here. So the item name, elevator, the image, the plugin automatically goes and grabs the image for you. Buy cooldown and sell cooldown. We're going to get into that in just a minute, so don't worry about that right now. But the next section is where you would change the price where you are selling to your player, as well as how much you're going to buy them back from the player. Obviously, don't buy them back for more than you sell them for. Otherwise, you're going to create a huge economic glitch in your server and people are going to get very rich very fast. There's also a limit section. This is another new feature. So limits and cooldown on buy and sell are all three new features for this plugin that I don't believe is actually on the version that's currently available from UMod, but it is on the version that's coming very soon. So I'm hoping Con is actually going to highlight these new features on the UMod site when he does finally get approval for this to be on UMod. So I've just changed my pricing a little bit here. So now I've changed it so that the buy price is now 100 coin or $100 or 100 economics, whatever you want to call it. And to sell it back to the shop, it will then pay me $10, 10 coins, whatever, if I sell my elevator back to the GUI shop. And of course, so this is probably going to be the most cumbersome part of this plugin, is you're going to have to go through and decide, okay, which items do I actually want to sell in my GUI shop? And then of course, how much do I want to sell them for? And are we going to offer the ability to sell those back to the GUI shop so that the player can get some money back? Because by default, they're able to do that with every single item, whereas some server owners don't necessarily want the player to be able to sell the item back to the shop and get money in return. So these are all kind of decisions that you have to make. Plus your pricing is incredibly important. You don't want to just dump this into your server, because by default, everything comes in. You can buy everything for 1 coin, including M249. So if you get caught with your pants down, you could end up with players coming into your server, realizing that they have a balance in their GUI shop fund, and then they can quickly go into the store and buy a ton of M249s, and then you're screwed. You've lost that wipe. So just make sure you deal with all of this stuff before your server populates, or deal with the configuration file without the plugin actually running on your server. That way nobody can exploit your GUI shop. Oof, I hope all that made sense. Whew. So I'm just going to save this. Let's do /shop again, and let's go find the elevator. So of course it's going to be an electrical, and there we go. Here's our elevator right there, and it is reflecting the price changes that we just did in the configuration. So in order for this player to buy an elevator, it would cost them 100 coins. In order for them to sell it back to the GUI shop, it would then pay them 10 coins. So like I said, you have to go through and do this for each individual item that you want to be able to buy and sell inside your GUI shop. And you also need to decide if you're actually going to buy things back from your players or not, because not everyone does. In fact, most people don't. Oof, why didn't I show you guys the limiter while I was in there too? Gosh. So going back to the configuration file, let's just put a limit in there. Let's make it so that we can only buy a maximum of 5 elevators per wipe. And let's also deal with the buy cooldown and sell cooldown. So I'm just going to put a 60-second cooldown on both of those categories. This is just for demonstration purposes. You would probably want to have a more realistic cooldown time, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, something like that. Basically what you're trying to do here is protect your server from an imbalance of economics. You don't want players to be able to sell things that are very common in your game and they can get very, very rich very, very quickly. A good example of that would be stone, because you do have, by default, you do have the ability to sell stone back to the GUI shop. So if you wanted to be able to prevent somebody from selling stone after stone after stone after stone, you would put a cooldown on that or a limiter on that. In this demonstration purpose, we're actually going to do both. You probably wouldn't want to use both in a real world application, but you definitely could if you so chose. It basically just prevents the overuse of the GUI shop or exploiting of the GUI shop. Okay, and obviously I've now saved that file and reloaded the plugin again. Let's have a look at our GUI shop now. Let's go into electrical. Okay, so now you can see some changes. So now it actually says underneath the item that there's a cooldown on it, which is great. I actually didn't know that was a feature. When Con and I were talking about this, he never mentioned anything about it. So I'm happy to see that that's in there now, because it's really good that your player knows that there's a cooldown on certain items. Now, the one thing that we did talk about is some way for the player to know that there's a limit on the item. So I'm going to try a couple of things here. I set the limit to 5 on the elevator. So I'm going to see what happens once I start to buy more than 5. So here's a great part of the cooldown. So it actually, once you trigger your cooldown on a certain item, it actually makes it so that you can no longer select that item at all. That is cool. Con, good job on that. This is the first time I'm seeing this functioning this way. I like it. I'm happy with that. Okay, so I just quickly went in and removed that cooldown because I want to test the limiter. So I've already bought one. Let's see what happens when I continuously buy them. So that should be at 4 or 5. Okay, so I've actually ran out of money before I actually hit a limiter. So I was able to buy 9 elevators. And I know that that's not the intention of the plugin. I know that he actually wants this to work. So I imagine this is one of the details that he's still working on. I'm not sure that he knows that that's not actually functioning as it's intended. So I'm going to let him know about that, but just know that the limiter is actually not currently functioning right now. That's okay. He'll get to it when he can. But the cooldown aspect of things, I do like that. So the cooldown and the limiter are 2 very strong methods to prevent exploiting your GUI shop. So that right there basically sums up most of the major changes that have been done. Actually, that's not true. There's a lot of major changes that have been done, but anybody that has used GUI Shop in the past, these are the things that you're going to appreciate the most, I believe. Now, a couple of other things that I want to go over is the human NPC aspect of GUI Shop. So if you've watched my previous video, and I might as well put it up in the corner right now so that if you haven't seen it, you can go watch it. It basically shows you how you can link your GUI Shop to a human NPC so that instead of doing /shop, you actually have to find the human NPC somewhere on the map in order to purchase items from that category. And if any of you have been following along with all of my video processes, you know that way back in the day, that was a struggle. Connecting the GUI shop to the human NPC was a struggle. Turns out the solution was actually quite easy. There's just no documentation to tell you how to actually do that. Well, now it's super simple. Same as before, you go up to the NPC that you want to apply to the shop. Same as it used to be, you need to know what the NPC ID is of whatever NPC it is that you want to put into that specific category. So to do that, you just walk up to the NPC that you want, you do /NPC_edit. It looks just like this. And once you're done that, it'll show you what the NPC ID is. So this one in this case is 8222354432. Let's take that information over to the GUI shop configuration file and make this NPC sell a specific category. So the top of your GUI shop is all broken up into categories. So as you can see here, we've got attire. We scroll down a little bit, we'll come to miscellaneous. We scroll down a little bit, we'll come to items. you get the idea. It's all broken up into categories, and these are the categories that you saw on my screen when I did /shop. So let's just use the attire category. So let's scroll down to the bottom of the attire category. And as you can see at the very bottom of each individual category, it says NPC and then NPC ID. So obviously we're going to change this to true, and then we're going to put that NPC ID in that we got from in-game. And just remember that every single one of your human NPCs that you have on your server has a different NPC ID. So it is important to make sure that you do get that information. Otherwise you could be looking for an NPC that you have no idea where it is. So once we've made that change, we're just going to save. Obviously we're going to reload our plugin. Everything looks good. Now let's go back in game. So back in game, let's do /shop. And as you can see by the categories that are atop my screen right now, you can no longer see an attire category in there, which means we can no longer buy clothing simply by typing /shop. So obviously that means we need to go up to this guy right here, and we need to type /shop when we're looking at this specific NPC. And boom, voila, there we go. Now we can buy clothing and armor and all these other various things just from the attire category from this NPC. It's kind of silly that I called this NPC Gunnysmith and then made him the clothing guy, but whatever, you get the idea. So /shop, now we can buy attire and none of the other categories show up. So we can literally only buy clothing and armor and whatever else is in that attire category from our configuration file. If you mess that up and you put other items in that category, so like let's say you put an M249 in the attire category, then yes, it's going to show up inside this NPC's list of available items to buy. So make sure that you are putting things in the right areas and where you actually want them to be. So this is not at all a tutorial on human NPCs. If you'd like to see another video on human NPCs, of course, leave me in the comment section down below. I have done one in the past. I'll put a link to it right now. It does need to be updated though, but I will tell you this right off the bat. If you're planning on using human NPCs on your server, whether you're using it on GUI Shop or not, just if you're going to have human NPCs, make sure you also grab the pathfinding plugin. It does tell you, so if you go to the human NPC page, you'll actually see that it depends on pathfinding right there. It does tell you that in plain English. Even as I was installing human NPC, I forgot to grab the pathfinding plugin, so it didn't work. I had to go back and I had to put in pathfinding first and then reload human NPCs. And then obviously it worked fine, but this is just another reminder for you. So just a couple of other things that I told Con that I would mention in this video is the customization level of the GUI shop that is coming in the future. Not quite there yet, but is coming, is actually quite cool. We have the ability to add our own personal icons to the shop. We can add our own personal buy icon as well as sell icon. We're also going to be able to change the colors of the GUI that actually shows up. So I'm not really sure if it's just going to be the text and the boxes or if it's going to be the background. I think there was a conversation that we were having a little while ago where we might actually be able to put a graphic on the back of the shop, control the transparency, stuff like that, so that we can see if somebody's coming up or whatever. But we might be able to put a graphic in the background. I'm not sure if that's actually confirmed or not. Another thing that is super cool about the new version is the same thing that you just watched me do with the human NPC. We're going to be able to do that with vending machines as well. I'm pretty sure the process is going to be almost exactly the same. I know that at one point he was struggling on getting the vending machine ID. I know he's not going to stop until he gets that figured out, so we'll just wait and see how that goes. Another cool thing that he said that he was working on is the ability to put a marker on the map. So the in-game map that we're looking at here right now, he wants the plugin to be able to put a marker on that map automatically anywhere that there's an NPC or a vending machine that is connected to the GUI shop. As you can see, that functionality is not currently in there right now, but I know that it's coming. I know that he's working on it tirelessly. I'm hoping that you guys are picking up on how excited I am about this new version of GUI Shop. GUI Shop is something that I've been working with for like, I don't know, probably 5 years. Like right from the very beginning when I first got involved with hosting my own servers, which was a long time ago, I wanted to have this and I've struggled with it every step of the way. So looking back on the history of this plugin, if I could have had this version that we have today and that you'll have very, very shortly, 5 years ago, I'd have been having shops coming out of my yin yang because it makes things so much easier. The fact that the config file auto generates, the fact that if you screw up in the configuration file, it doesn't reset it back to default, making you lose all of your work. That's another huge thing that I don't think I've mentioned so far. If you screw up on your configuration file and you reload the plugin, typically, historically, it would have reverted your entire configuration file back to default, losing those 8,000 lines of configuration that you had worked so tirelessly on. That doesn't happen anymore. So that's another huge bonus to this new version. Another thing that Con asked me to mention is there's the classic version of the GUI shop, and he's going to make it toggleable. So inside the configuration file, you can select whether you're using the classic version of the GUI shop or you're using this new version that has the categories across the top. The old version didn't have that. Okay, so that basically sums up the brand new GUI shop. This is very exciting for me. I know maybe some of you don't quite understand why I geek out about this so much, but this stuff is super cool and super exciting. And I sometimes feel like I get more excited about the changes to plugins than I do about changes in the game. The elevator, for example, while it is cool, did we really need an elevator? I don't know. These changes to the GUI shop though, we needed this. The previous version was just too complicated. And like I said a minute ago, if you screwed up somewhere, you could have lost hours and hours of work. It was just way too frustrating. And I know there's people out there that have tried GUI shop and said, you know what, screw this. It's just not worth it. I'll figure out another way. And now thanks to Con, all of these wrinkles have been ironed out. It's now a super easy plugin to use. Before I would say it was like a 7 or 8 on a scale of 10 on difficulty level. He's brought it back down to a 2 or a 3. This plugin is super easy to use. So as soon as it gets put through the approval process on the UMod website, this is going to be available to you guys. It could be tomorrow. It could be today. It could be right now, actually. I haven't even checked. It could have been approved as I was recording this video. I have no idea. As soon as I'm done here though, I will actually contact Con and see if it has been submitted for approval. And if it is, it shouldn't take very long. All right, so that's it. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think you're going to use GUI shop? Let me know in the comment section down below. Have you tried it before and gave up on it? Are some of these features going to bring you back into using GUI shop? I feel that the shop itself is a really cool way to start creating an economics environment on your server. It gives something for your players to work towards, etc., etc. It's pretty fun. So I appreciate that Con has taken it upon himself to make this plugin definitely more accessible and definitely way easier for more server owners to actually use it on their servers. Okay, so that's it. I'm going to stop talking about GUI shop. But before I let you guys go, if you haven't already done so, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so that you do get notified as soon as I upload a new video. I put out a brand new video every Friday at 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, which I guess is going to be switching to Mountain Daylight Time, which is stupid. I think we should get rid of Daylight Savings Time, but whatever, that's a conversation for a different day. If you'd like to help support the channel, of course, you can always check me out at patreon.com/srtbull, and you can become one of the people that are on the list on the right-hand side of the screen right now. These are my current supporters. These people have taken it upon themselves in these trying times that we're currently in right now to help support the channel. Their contribution goes directly into the channel. It goes into production. It goes into editing. It only goes into the production of this channel. So I super appreciate every single one of them. And even if you can't or don't want to contribute using Patreon, just simply watching to this point of the video, you've already done the most that I could ever ask anybody to do. Everything else is just a cherry on top. So a special thank you goes out to my patrons. I appreciate every single one of you. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank my channel sponsor, which is icedhost.com. Without them, I can assure you I would not be where I am right now. So if you'd like to check them out, make sure you go to icedhost.com. And if you do happen to pick them as your service provider, make sure you use the promo code SRTBull. It'll save you 30% off your first 2 months of service on any shared server that they provide. Okay, that's it. I've blabbed on long enough. I'll see you guys next Friday. Take care of yourselves. I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.